Good evening. Call to order the Finance Committee meeting of Thursday, February 13th. Our first agenda item is approval of the minutes from December 12th.
Make a motion to approve the December 12th, 2024 meeting minute.
I second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I abstain. I was not in attendance.
Okay. Item 2, update grand list, town assessor. Welcome, Stuart.
Welcome. All right, I'm done.
Thank you. Treat him nice and he's done quick. Give us some good news.
Well,
Good night.
it didn't snow all day. All right, okay, so the grand list this year. The first slide here just shows the breakdown of it. Shows that a little over 87% of your grand list is the real estate. Personal property, 6.33%. The motor vehicle is 7.03%. Just a couple of years ago, the motor vehicle grand list was almost 12% of your grand list. And as we get done tonight, you'll see more and more why it's not. Part of it has to do with last year's revaluation, and then a good part of it's going to be the change in the law that they did in the special session back in July. That made all the news. All right, here's the delta from 2023 to 2024. If you look at real estate, it went down just under 0.6, so 0.59%. Personal property went up 1.7 million, almost 1%. And then motor vehicles went down 11.68%. And that's because of the special session that the legislature had last July. And it went down 23,682,000. And the total, sorry, it went down more than that. I don't know why that number's there. Somewhere my math was wrong.
Yeah, it's like 27.
Yeah, it's 27 million down. I'll have to fix that for Monday. But anyway, the whole grand list went down $40 million. And the majority of it right there on motor vehicles. All right, and as you see, last year the motor vehicles was 7.82%. Like 2019, it was a lot, almost 12%. And this year it's just over 7%. So as you see, it keeps getting to be a smaller piece of the pie and what you get for tax dollars from motor vehicles. All right, now why? This is the big part. All right, Public Act 2446 created Connecticut General Statute 1281-83, which exempted the primary dwelling or one motor vehicle for veterans who were permanently and totally disabled. Now the legislature says that they intended it to be those who are 100% disabled and permanent and total. And that's what they talked about today at the legislature. But that's not what they wrote. So we have 18 veterans who qualify under 1281-83 who are totally and permanently disabled as rated by the Veterans Administration. It's almost $3.5 million in assessment, and at the current mill rate, it's almost $102,000 in taxes that this year, because of that one law, will not be receiving. So, and it was not optional, and it's not reimbursed from the state. It's the state said, this is what you're doing. Today they're arguing about it again. We'll see what the fallout's going to be in the next month or so. But that one law adversely affected our real estate grand list. All right, now we have Public Act 24-1, this special session last July. It changed Connecticut General Statute 1263 and how we valued motor vehicles. And it created Connecticut General Statute 1281-82. And 1281-82 exempts all your snowmobiles, all your all-terrain vehicles, and all your residential utility trailers that are used for residential use. So all your boat trailers, all those little Home Depot trailers, all those things are now exempt. Your four-wheel motorcycle, that's exempt. Your snowmobile is now exempt. We'll get into how much that impacted the grand list shortly. But now, instead of using the J.D. Powers clean retail value, we are to use the MSRP value as published in the Price Digest Guide. And then we use a fixed depreciation schedule. So it's MSRP, and then it starts at 85%, and then it goes 80, 75, 70, 65, 60, 55, 50, 45, 40, 35, 30, 25, 20, and then it stops at 15. At 15 years of depreciation, it stops at 15 for the next 5 years. And then that's it. It just says it stops at 15. And the minimum assessment a vehicle can have is $500. That's the minimum. So a lot of the boat trailers and all that were not a lot of assessment, but now they're all exempt. But if there is a trailer out there that's not in that classification, or any vehicle for that matter, the minimum assessment it can be is $500. And now there's no adjustment for condition, there's no adjustment for mileage, rebuilt title. It's MSRP less depreciation, and that's it. And that's what impacted your motor vehicle grand list. And I, explaining it to Ray and Mona, I kind of just said, just like last year we had revaluation with real estate, we just had revaluation with motor vehicles. So it's just, although you're looking at a net decrease in the grand list, it's really just shifting the burden from one class of property to the other. And in this case, it's from motor vehicles to real estate and personal property. So a lot of people will be out there saying, oh, wow, you're going to raise our taxes. No, it's just shifting it from one property to the other. All right? And that's how that's what's happening. And if we go to the next slide, and if you look at this slide, it shows what the decrease on the average type of vehicle. So the passenger car, it's almost 9% decrease, $1,100 in assessment, it decreased. It's $32 at the current mill rate. So if you sit there and, okay, a lot of people have more than one car. All right, so you just do the math. The commercial vehicles went down $2,400 in assessment on average. The pickup trucks, they went down $3,500 in assessment. And so there's a little over $100. And then the trailers and everything else is in the all others. And it went down 32%. So that's all that stuff that is now exempt is in that category. Your school buses are in there, and there's camp trailers and things like that. But everything gets valued at MSRP, less depreciation, and then except for those things that are exempt. And as you see, so people will be saying, oh, gee, my house taxes went up this year, but their car taxes went down. And that's just what's going to happen because the state decided that we're changing the way we value vehicles. Yeah, okay. So these are just your top 10 taxpayers. And if you notice, I believe 5 out of the top 10 are your largest apartment buildings. And so that's just some general information knowledge. And I'm here for your questions.
Stuart, just one, on the real estate taxes, you noticed that there's a $14.8 million change. $3.5 million's the veterans exception. What's the other 11+ million decrease?
Tax appeals.
Okay.
Either we settled them or whatever, or came to an agreement with a plaintiff against the town.
these figures, they do not reflect the recent reassessment. That's gonna take effect for the 2025 grand list, right? The reval, I mean,
The reval last year?
Yeah.
No, that's already in there.
that's baked into this?
Yep,
That was the 23 number.
yep. Well, and the real estate value carries until 2028.
Right, but it's, yes, but
And the,
first year, yeah.
yeah, and the personal property and motor vehicles, well, personal property now gets revalued every year, but in the motor vehicles, it's just another 5% depreciation from this year on forward.
Let's stay on the real estate.
Yep,
We have a column here for 23 and 24. The 2023 column for real estate, that reflects the reval we just had?
yes,
Okay. So 2024 then is just basically building on that, on the
Yes.
reval figures.
next year is gonna be a really good year for real estate. There's a lot of stuff happening.
What do you mean by that?
Well, you have the apartments on Henkel Way, you have the apartments going up here on Stepney Place, and there's some more construction going on through town.
Plus, you're talking about a grand list increase
Yes.
based upon construction. I got you.
Yep,
I know it's not on the chart. Do you have the 2022 figures for real estate for the reval?
not with me, but I can have them for Tuesday night.
But that's not an apples to apples comparison because it's the 2022.
It's before the revaluation.
So it's not, that really would not be an
Yeah.
honest comparison.
Yep.
So this reduction again, so it's primarily based on appeals
For the real estate, yes, except for,
and the veterans.
and the veterans, that's the new state law.
And that accounted for, I believe, about $3 million worth, you said? Of
It's
the,
3.5 million for the 128183.
about a quarter of it.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
I just have one question. This is more hypothetical, but looking at the top 10 taxpayers, understanding there's an abatement for Kelson Row initially, but just from a value, if it was a completed project, where does that fit in like the top 2 or 3 probably on this list, or?
Probably. I'll just say this as I tell everybody that comes into my office to have something to say about Kelson Row. I've been here almost 20 years, and it's probably the best thing that's happened to this town. When I say a lot, I ain't gonna say a lot more traffic, but you're gonna have a better traffic count on the Silestine Highway, going from the highway to Main Street, and that's gonna help all the businesses along the Silestine Highway thrive. And with them thriving and being able to expand and grow, it'll help the tax base for generations to come.
Do any of the other apartment complexes you were referring to a second ago, are they going to fall into the top 10 in this list, or I don't know how large scale they are? Some of these, I don't know the code name, like MKS 5, I don't know.
Yeah, I tried to put what it was on there. I'm looking for it. It's
MKS is commercial.
Okay.
yeah,
Hill
that's 500
Properties,
Enterprise Drive.
Alterra.
Yeah.
Stepney Place with their additions to their the apartments, their 78 units, whatever they have coming in, will make the top 10 next year. They will. I'm not sure where the one's going to come in on Henkel Way, but it's going to be close to it. You know, if they're not in the top 10, it'll be right outside the top 10. There's a lot of good things happening. You know, just a year later than I wished it was.
So looking at this top 10, correct me if I'm wrong, it looks like entries number 6 and number 7 are the only ones that are basically office space, correct?
Number 6 is assisted living facility on Cold Spring Road.
Oh, that's what that is. Okay.
Yeah.
That's,
There's two,
Atrium or Atria, one of those?
yeah, and then there's one to the right. They're on the same property.
Okay. And then MKS, is that?
Yeah, that's 500 Enterprise Drive. It's the office building.
So that's the only one of the top 10 that's office.
Yes.
In office, and do we know what the occupancy is on that space, how they're doing?
Not off the top of my head. It's one of our better occupied
Yeah,
office
it's-
spaces.
It's over 80,
Yeah.
over 80%. Yeah, it's up there.
I mean, it's good to see that only one of the top 10 is office, because office in general is struggling. And, you know, if 7 of the top 10 were office space, we'd be looking at potentially some major more revisions downward. So I guess it's a good thing that we're not top-heavy on that.
Well, we have, let's see, we have agreements with just about all those taxpayers on that top 10 list. So the only ones that at the moment can appeal their assessment is Connecticut Light and Power and Connecticut Natural Gas. All the others we have agreements with that they can't appeal their assessments.
And again, the utilities properties, I mean, they're not much office, so it's basically infrastructure.
Right, yep, it's their infrastructure.
It's not something that's gonna be, share that pain in office space. So I guess that's a good thing that we're not highly dependent on office space.
Yes. I think the future with office space is going to be positive. We just got to get there. You know, as I come to work, I call it Traffic Tuesdays because people go to work in the office on Tuesdays and Thursdays, but I call it Traffic Tuesday because it takes me longer to get to work on Tuesday and Thursdays than any of the other days. Not that it takes me long at all, but it takes me longer. But I think as time goes on, more and more people will be going to the office, or they'll make the size of the offices smaller and have more tenants. So they will adapt, and it'll recover eventually.
Anything else for Stuart? Stuart, thank you for your presentation.
You're welcome.
See you Tuesday.
Item 3, discussion and possible action, resolution trash collection, trash away contract extension.
Okay, so, yes, we have a resolution here. We've been with Trash Away since 1982. This particular contract we're looking at was entered in 2019, and it came with 2 extension periods. We exercised the last extension. I noticed that I have an error in the write-up, which would say that the first extension was exercised and expires on June of '25. The contract is written to have another extension opportunity if we were to exercise that, would bring us from July 1, '25 through June of '28. The recommendation coming from the vendor is to have a 0 increase for this upcoming budget year, and a consumer price index adjustment, which is written into the contract. So they would waive the CPI for this upcoming year. So we'd have 1 with no increase, and then the following 2 and 3 would go back to the CPI adjustment. So it's our recommendation that we continue with that second round of extensions. I've done some homework around looking at competing vendors, neighboring towns, and to continue at this price with no increase would probably leave us to the benefit of about 15% in a cost saving. At looking at comparing vendors that towns that are using this particular vendor or other vendors if we were to go out and bid. So it's definitely keeping us in a nice flat cost savings area. I would point out that we have one benefit additional to this contract is that Rocky Hill has gotten to be accustomed to one of those towns where we have multiple trash carts per home. We've been doing a pretty good job of inventorying these and see if we can get away with the multiple carts, and getting more toward recycling helps us with our tonnage. But pointing that out is that this particular contract recognizes a unit as a household. Like if we were to eventually open this whole contract up to a bid, it would be by cart, not by home. So again, a great incentive if we were to go forward with this at the no cost, because I think if we don't continue to be a little more diligent on looking on what our usage is town-wide, I think in the future we could be setting ourselves for an increase. So it's our recommendation that we exercise this second extension going from the July 25 to June 28, and the 0% change for the 25-26 budget year.
So Mo, just the part you said we had to edit, is this in the report recommendation where it says the second extension was
Yes.
exercised? So that should say the first, and then the first extension will expire June in 25?
Correct.
Okay.
Yes, thank you.
No, I just want to make sure.
Mona, what is our, do you know, off the top of your head, what our spend is on?
The contract itself is presently at about 770. Again, it's based on a per unit cost, trash collection, and I won't say the exact cent, but I believe we're like at 678 cents per unit, and then it's about 297, I believe, for the recycling.
I'm sorry, what our total spend is for the, not the per household?
Yeah, 770. Yes,
770,000.
yeah,
Okay, I'm sorry.
770 per year,
that's okay. Pardon me?
770,000 per year.
Correct, for the entire town, yeah.
So a couple years ago, we were looking at some potential pilot programs sponsored or encouraged by DEEP to reduce the amount of food waste generated per household. And we've had a lot of discussions about that and trying to come up with a program to divert some of that from the waste stream and thereby reduce the amount of volume that trash away would have to haul away. When we realized that there was no financial incentive for us to do that because of the pricing unit that you're talking about is per household, it's not by tonnage or anything like that, that there was no financial benefit to, or financial incentive for the town to reduce the amount of waste. And that was something that, when we were weighing whether or not to pursue these types of programs to reduce household waste, we know there's potential environmental benefits to it and the like, but there was really no financial incentive to do so.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so by renewing
Okay.
this contract as written with that provision, we have another 3 years of no financial incentive to try to reduce our volume of waste. Isn't that correct?
No, actually, it's not. This is the collection piece of it, so actually the trash is coming in two components. So the trash collection is not what's going to be driving that. Where we were, I guess if you'd say need, and we still need the opportunity for savings, the issue was on the disposal, which is the tonnage. So when we're doing like the two trash barrels by home and nobody recycles, that's going into your disposal as tonnage. Whereas if we were going to recycle, then that'd be the lesser cost. So we still have to, and we've got some ideas. Like I said, we're going with the sending out the smaller barrels. We've got homes that have 96-gallon barrels, and we should be just going out saying, you're getting the 64, and we're doing that now. You're getting the smaller ones. So the tendency is to educate, and we need a lot of education. We probably get in the budget process and talk about that, but just educating. Anything that's going in that green barrel is just going straight tonnage, and that's where you don't get to do the benefit of the food waste. We didn't get the great benefit from that doing the DEP grant, and it's on the disposal piece, not the collection. We can still continue to collect, and right now, it's in our best interest to collect at this lower rate. We need to do our homework on that other side, which is the disposal, which is going by tonnage. Anything we can put into the recycle stream can be a lesser amount. It can go off to someone and get turned into energy, fuel. We could, every item in recycling can be handled differently for a cost savings. We've got to get away from that tendency to put everything into the green barrel and just become a tonnage, $115 a ton.
Break down the collection versus the disposal cost.
Yeah, and actually, right, they're almost neck and neck in budget-wise, so you're about 778 for the, this, which is the collection side. You've also around 750, which is the disposal piece.
Which is
That's where
based
we
on
can work
tonnage.
on the savings.
So the contract, maybe I'm misremembering then, because I thought that when we examined this issue, when we were kicking around the deep concept, that there was a sense that we were locked into a pricing structure that would eliminate any financial incentive to doing that. What
No,
am I
you're right, you're remembering that part correctly, but that is the alternate vendor who is doing the disposal. So collection being trash away was not what was keeping us from moving forward. It is Murphy Road, which we did the multi-year contract with the other towns, and that's what was blocking us, and still is. We have one more year on that the 25-26 budget year will be the last year in that contract. So, yes, there was blocking, it's on the disposal side of it, not on the collection.
Two separate contracts then, so one with
Yes.
trash away just for collection, and then a separate contract with another vendor for disposal.
Correct.
So, so what are the logistics of this then? So if trash away is taking away our trash, but they're not handling disposal, where are they taking our trash to?
Well, they are taking it to Murphy Road. They're going to, trash waste coming to your house, picking it up and taking it directly to Murphy Road,
And then-
which
and
became
that's the
part
hand-
of that DEP nightmare.
Handoff, and that's basically,
Right.
so that's almost like the transfer station, and then from there, what's the name of the other vendor, the disposal vendor? Murphy, it's called Murphy Road,
It is
right?
Murphy Road, yeah.
They take it from there, and that's where the tonnage calculation comes in.
That's correct, yes.
Got it,
Yes.
okay, thank you.
So 1.4 million?
In total, around that, at least that, yeah.
Roughly half and half, as you said.
Mhm. It's
disposal,
about a
collection,
50-50.
disposal. Two different vendors, okay.
Should I make a motion?
Go ahead.
I'd like to make a motion to approve tonight to go to our town council meeting on Tuesday, the approval of the first extension, the second extension of our contract with Trash Away for our refuse and recycling services.
And to put that on what part of the agenda, Jeff?
Is new business, yeah.
Second.
Any further discussions? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Moving forward, discussion possible action, resolution, Rocky Hill Community Farm lease renewals.
Since I'm the farm expert at this table,
Farmer in chief.
I'll jump in. 3 years ago, as you may remember, the town council approved lease agreements to lease roughly 30 acres of land at the Rocky Hill Community Farm. Those lease agreements were made with Hayes Farm, Fairweather Growers, and Gilbert Farm LLC. The initial period was for 3 years. According to the lease documents, each farmer had to notify the town that they wish to renew, and they have. They emailed me, notified me. I forwarded this request onto the Rocky Hill subcommittee, the Farmland Preservation Subcommittee, just for a quick review and a recommendation back to this Finance Subcommittee. Their recommendation was to renew the 3 leases and holding the initial $50 per acre annual total lease payment for the duration of the next 3 years. The total annual payment for the leases would only be $1,618, just over $1,600, $1,618, sorry.
Just one quick thing. It looks like in the last paragraph, the first sentence should be November 26, 2024, not 2004.
Jeez. Mona, what's wrong with you?
I don't know how weird.
It's Mona's fault.
So, a question. These parcels of land, excuse me, do we incur any costs as the town for anything related to those parcels?
No, absolutely no cost.
So the $1,600 isn't offsetting any cost, it's strictly, okay.
Yeah, the only cost for that farm is from the wetland to the road where the barn is, that's our cost. Once you cross a little wetland, the 30 acres is all managed by the farmers.
And then there was a question, I did speak to Mona about it earlier. When this was originally put in, I believe the town was picking up the insurance portion on that. And from talking to Mona on the renewal, I guess the prior renewal, that was changed where the farmers are now
No,
picking up the insurance, providing their certificate of insurance.
The initial lease, we required insurance coverage from the farmers, so it's in there. We just, before I sign off on the lease, they'll have to update their insurance
Okay.
policy.
All right.
With that, I'll make a motion to approve to go to our town council meeting on Tuesday as a new business item, the renewal of the leases of the farmland to Hayes Farm, 1886 LLC, Fairweather Growers LLC, and Gilbert Farm LLC, as authorized in Section 5 of the contract for leasing of farmland at the current annual per acre rate of $50, and subject to all conditions, restrictions, and requirements of the original leases.
So that would be under new business or consent?
New business,
New business.
right?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. So Ray, we just got to update the council agenda because it's, both of those are under consent.
Under consent.
Yeah, okay.
Change it.
Business,
Yep.
please. Update special revenue fund.
Okay. Couple things on our special revenues. First item being that CDBG Small Cities. We have had meetings. First, this particular grant has two components, one being the rehab grant. They're both about $80,000 each. And the rehab, which was Rocky Hill only, in talking with the state that if we would like to approach them and ask for it to be repurposed to our existing small cities program, which is with affordable housing, they were agreeable with that. The second component is a tri-town that hasn't had activity for a number of years. And again, talking with the state, the recommendation was to go to the other towns and get their input. We were having that managed by L. Wagner Associates. One of the individuals from that group is actually helping us on the Housing Authority. And we were able to have a pretty good conference call with Newington and Weathersfield, discussing what to do with these funds, because Rocky Hill is the leader of that tri-town. Really, the ultimate decision comes from Rocky Hill. But we're going to be having each town, Weathersfield and Newington, writing back their consent to us, and then we'll be able to move forward to the state and have both sets of funds be repurposed to the Housing Authority project. Since there's an existing project, it's easier for them to reassign rather than just have it refunded back to the state with no use.
We'll have a public hearing for the town council to vote on it. It's required as part of the reprogramming process with the state. We did this 2014, the last Housing Authority grant. We reprogrammed a portion of this account to the Housing Authority project, and the town council voted in a public hearing. So we'll have to follow that same process.
So when we speak of Housing Authority, that's the senior housing?
Yes, on Willow Road?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we just had $2 million get authorized by the feds for renovations there. So we're talking about repurposing most or potentially all of these monies for potentially some enhancements above and beyond that. Is that the idea?
Right.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Do you have any thoughts in mind particular what that might be?
Right now, I don't, but I know the Housing Authority director and also their consultant, they were, actually the 2 million plus the other 2 million from CHFA, that's 4 million total, still doesn't address all of the updates that they needed, but I don't know what the specifics are yet. We will have to show the state what they are before we get to the public hearing process.
I'm sure the tenants will have some suggestions.
I'm sure they won't have any issue spending the money. That's, are there any other, just as a general, on the special revenue fund, are there any of these funds that could potentially help us when the budget comes around? Is there anything that can be utilized?
I'd say each one has its own, I guess, kind of pros and cons to them. Obviously, I think that this next one down the industrial park, we did the resolution, for example, and said this is not being used, and you'll see that on the Fund 40 non-reoccurring fund. Of course, with that recreation program, for the most part, that's funding anything that's their regular operational programs. But if we had maybe on general fund, if we're subsidizing a theater program or something, we could not subsidize and look at it to go to the special rec. You have to be careful with those. Again, it's supposed to be fee for service, not supplementing, not supplanting. So we be careful about what we do with that. The same occurs with the library operating. Again, those are from the gift and books or donations, so it's with the library having a general fund budget, there's some potential. But for the most part, I think they're doing a great job in keeping the regular budget side pretty well managed on that. Yes, the town clerk is, you're jumping ahead of me now. Asset forfeiture, we've had in the past where they've been doing purchase of vehicles. At this time, there's only discussion phases with the fire chief and the police chief. Something I'm looking at, a boat, whatever, and I'm not gonna do it justice because I'm not getting public safeties, but to get the new boat, the shared Connecticut River boat. And again, it's like high-level discussion, no action, anything taking on that. But again, with that, as long as we're careful, if we're trying to help with the budget, that we are doing things that are not normal operational. So obviously, you're not gonna do, salaries and benefits and routine supplies, but if they had an equipment item that they would like to present, this would be a nice place for it.
Okay.
The town clerk, we're actually doing, I think, a lot with that now. Again, it's for record retention. Went back and really looked at the definition, and it's not necessarily retention of only the clerk office, it's retention of records in general. So we've been able to do a lot with the building department, and fire marshal's office as well. So some of this just things that we would normally have to go outsource, and we're being able to use it from this particular fund. So it'll eventually deplete. It grew, and we're gonna try to use that for a lot of record retention. Again, that the Human Youth Service, well, I'll stop with those two, functions similar to the library and the special rec. And as long as we are looking at things that are not the normal operation, these type of funds can be a nice home for that.
So
The,
there's
the-
really nothing that could be go into the general fund at this point?
Out of general fund into,
Into general fund, out of the.
well, no offense, but you would do the opposite. If anything, you would say, have something that was kind of above and beyond the normal operation, showing in general fund and put it here.
Well, that's, yeah, but the question is, can you use some of these funds to,
Yeah,
The supplement within the budget.
within the general fund?
Right.
yeah.
And, I'm not trying to take funds that where individuals donated money for a particular purpose and
Right.
use them for a
Right,
purpose that it wasn't.
yeah.
I'm just looking, do we have some surplus or
I
potential
think,
uses?
is that explaining it? I mean,
Yeah.
unfortunately, every special revenue has its own little animal of how it came about. That's why they become special revenues and so much
Right.
fun to put. For example, the private duty, there's a balance in there. We're actually taking advantage of the fact that that's for the officers that are doing the work, but also because when we're charging at an increase, which is for the overhead and benefits. So each year, I don't know if it stands out well, but on the revenue side of general fund, we've had for the past 3 years, $150,000 comes out of this right off the top to cover just excess for health insurance, pension, that type of. If we wanted to go back and reassess that, because again, the cushion is about 40%. We could probably go higher than the 150. This might be time to go to a 200 for that. And so those are the ones with the more flexibility. The remaining are donations and a little more strict.
Right. Okay. So there's, long story short, there's some options.
Yes, there are.
That we consider when we get towards the budget
Yeah.
cycle.
Yeah, I guess along those same lines, are there options where, for some of these, maybe for the police or fire, where we use those funds to buy something for police and fire that we would have used the general fund for, which now we can reduce the general fund? as well?
Correct.
So,
Yes,
okay.
that's
kinda what
where
you're
we're
saying.
going, yep.
Okay.
Any other questions on special revenue? Nope. All right, move on to reserve for capital and non-recurring expenditures.
Okay. Not a lot of activity in there. I'd mentioned that industrial park money went out of special revenue, came into this. It doesn't jump out too much at you, but it's toward the mid-section that's called reserve and unassigned. So when we put that money in, That's the line that starts beginning with 123,000 and the receipt of 54. That 27 plus of the industrial park money is there. That particular line item now is at 178. And along, I know we haven't asked, but I'll volunteer that piece anyway, but along that concept of the special revenue, the non-reoccurring, for something that says unassigned, we've got another piece that's called undesignated, the 128,000. Those items are in this non-recurring fund, and if we were to choose to identify a purpose for it, this could be used to help you in your budgeting.
Any questions there? No? Nope. State aid for municipalities?
Okay, state aid, we've got our ECS money in, and we've got our town aid road. We knew we were not receiving that municipal revenue sharing. I don't hear any indication that there will be a change on that, so we'll still be the 221, 199 short on the state revenue. All other sources are coming in.
What was the source of that in the past, the municipal revenue sharing that we're not seeing this year?
Oh, the revenue sharing, that was a bonded amount of money that they were allocating to towns, and it could be used for things that seem very similar to what the town aid road would do. It could be for, tree cutting or, that type. So they had bonded money and set aside for various towns, and they just decided that they didn't have the funds available for bonding and did not fund that one this year. So it's relatively new. I think we've only been getting that for about 3 or 4 years.
About 220 some odd thousand. Yeah, it's part of the statute, so some of that comes out of a different, larger pool. And if, according to the statute, they pay for A, B, and C first, and then if anything left over, they divide it amongst the municipalities. But apparently this year, A, B, and C took all the money and they had nothing left over. Basically, that's like
Describes it well.
the bottom level explanation for that.
So when we're going through the budget process upcoming for the next fiscal year, how are we going to factor that particular, are we going to assume we're getting anything, or?
No, well, I don't even want to think about that segue, but thinking of revenues, that is going to be a whole issue in itself. I know you're asking about this particular one because the bonding is not there, unless they're identifying it. They'll communicate, obviously, from governors. If it's in, if they're listing it as governor's budget, then we still put it in. But keep in mind that money that we received this year, about $900,000 for the offset for motor vehicle, just getting preparation, will not be a line item to put into next year. So we're going to have the $900,000 less. The purpose of that was for the capping on the motor vehicle tax. So if you went to the 3246 and you had to cap, that the state was reimbursing for what you would miss out on. But since we did our reval and we're at 2917 for our mill rate, then we will not be getting anything because we're not experiencing the stringency of being under that cap. So that piece will be out. We won't be able to factor that in, although we're seeing that it could be almost a dollar for dollar increase on the ECS side, but it's in the early stages for them. We'll still continue to try to make our best estimate.
Well, just on that motor vehicle, and make sure I'm following. I understand we're not getting it because we're not capped, but when we did our assessment, we got 100% of what we assessed. So we're really not losing anything. We got it in our normal billing.
Correct.
It's just which hand it's.
Exactly. It's just not coming from the state hand. When they call it actually the motor vehicle transition, so that's their intent.
Right, but we
Yeah.
get it as part of our assessment.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
Anything else on state aid?
Nothing.
Go on to the monthly financial report.
Okay. So I'll jump in, as I like to do, and look at that tax revenue page. We have in the past few months been struggling, as you can see, trying to get meet the benchmark. Last month it was at $2.2 million negative. against the benchmark, again, just the benchmark. So we are ahead of that for the month of January. Although still looking at what happens for February will be that, the icing on the cake. If we continue to pick up that extra $2 million, 82.2 million to 84.7 expected for next month, is at the point, I think we're on the revenue side, we'll have a good comfort level. So although I'm happy to see that that's met the benchmark, I think we're still gonna watch closely. In fact, we put in a spending freeze for our departments right now until we can get through that end of February and make sure that we really are in the collection place we want to be. So just being cautious, because that obviously, if we don't meet up to that level, then we'll have to adjust on the spending side rather than the revenue side.
Are you attributing to the catch-up at all to any of the new efforts that we've put in place to collect?
They are helping. This particular page is talking about the current tax, and we are doing on prior year taxes. So we're doing the collections with the Tax Serve Collection Agency. And as of just a couple of days ago, it was about $250,000 that they've collected. So again, we've put out $2 million. We're getting about $250 back. So it's good. It's good. Yeah, and so, yeah, just this particular is showing just your current year. All that extra will be, obviously, to our advantage. Otherwise, revenues are doing well, particularly conveyance and building are a bit above budget. We talked about state revenue. On the expenditure side, we're still looking at the issues with overtime. We looked at the police patrol overtime. The chief's doing a great job trying to take individuals and moving their shifts around so that it's not creating an overtime situation. But we do have a couple of vacancies as well as some people that are out, which are creating an overtime issue. And we are right in the midst of our winter, and our highway overtime is creeping up at 77%. So again, we got to watch that, and I think we've got a couple more snow incidents coming up.
It always snows on a holiday or a Sunday.
Isn't that the truth? Outrageous, double time. I'm going to just jump over to that sewer charge, because we were so happy that we had our the secret sauce for the MDC calculation, and unfortunately, the person that was serving our special sauce is no longer with MDC, and they did go through their budget process and didn't follow the normal method where they would say use the previous year and do an average, and they actually gave us this year an increase for the last 2 quarters. So just kind of pointing out that we're going to have an overage. Not that it's a large overage, but something to keep in mind on how to predict the upcoming if the trend is going to be a little more difficult to estimate. I think other than that, these are items that we've talked about before as far as the aquatics and chemicals. Capital Town Aid Road is at about 60%. We'll see that probably increase in the next month or so. That's where we're doing some of our salt purchase out of that as well. And insurances are on track. We're at 3/4 paid through already. So if you're seeing those percentages, they're a month ahead. So we do a little prepaying for the quarter as well as the monthly. And those are the highlights.
Any questions on monthly budget?
Just a question on the reference on the summary sheet, Mona, to road paving expenditures. That's, I mean, the referendum money, that's all long gone, right? Or is that still what we're working on?
We're still working on it. The road, yeah, that's actually got a few streets that are already identified, and that's by the outsourced company. That'll be like, well, won't say the vendor's name, but it'll be a vendor going out and doing those projects. This is the road paving, and it's on your general fund budget side. This is the money that's coming in from the state. They give about $360,000 for town aid road projects that we're doing in-house. So this will be our people going out doing, curbing or aprons or that type of situation, and in some cases when you have a salt purchase. So it's anything that's doing our in-house. The road referendum was actually doing the whole town by third party, like doing the whole paving and milling and paving.
Yeah, very systematically. And where are we in that process? Is that complete? Are we getting down to last year? Where are we on
yeah.
the townwide?
Yeah, we're living the last year right now.
We're in it
Yeah.
right now.
Yeah, because when we just did that bond sale for the 6 million, that was, that indication that we're on the last year of it. So we're probably spending off that last, probably just short of $1 million in there. And again, going back to that, where we had our concept about putting a reserve for infrastructure in for this year, this is where we should start planning for the fact that we don't have a road referendum for the 25-26 year.
And so, how long of a pause can we realistically hope for before we need to gear up for another referendum for another, major townwide repaving project?
In all honesty, if we do that reserve correctly, you should not have to do another road referendum.
But we spent roughly $10 million in 5 years, right? $2 million a year for 5 years, plus or minus?
Probably about 6.5 years, right?
Okay, so about 1.6 million a year,
Yeah.
1.5. And so what's how much, so we're getting about 360 from the state now?
Right, different usage, different
So
purpose.
it's not-
We
so-
put on, right.
So we're not applying that then?
No, we could,
So, okay.
not a bad idea.
Well, I'm getting at those, we're spending roughly $1.5 million a year, so we're trying to now, kind of maintain the status quo by spending how much going forward?
So we had, the reserve is 650.
Okay.
And where did we do? We end up reducing
it
that
was
450. And then this town aid road would help, as long as we
That's-
don't do it on.
Well, you said that the town aid, that's for something else, though. That's for repairs, and that's not really
Yeah,
the same thing we're
as I
talking
say,
about.
yeah, I'd like to say it could be. I think that we in-house, my belief, that we in-house should not be using that 360 for the, just a little routine daily. They should be able to do that, if we were using it properly, and doing it as a set-aside, and getting prepared with the reserve, that we could definitely build up a situation so you should not have to do bonding
Well,
on a
saying that
referendum.
350 is again for needs as they pop up, but I'm just thinking that systematically, we're spending about 1.6 million a year. Now you're saying we're making do with 650. It seems like there's a shortfall of about $1 million a year. How is that gonna work going forward? If we needed to spend 1.6 million a year to get the job done during these last 6 years or so, how are we gonna accomplish the same thing at 650 a year?
And I'm probably not going to do Steve Sobolak justice, but unfortunately, we talk about that a lot. I think that the process used in the past would not be the process used in the future. He's looking at different methods, and please jump in there if I'm off, but a different process that would not be as expensive and will be as effective. So if we continue with the thought of the reserve, that the engineer thinks that this is a good approach.
In the past, Steve's come before the council explaining this like type process instead of, rebuilding, and reclaiming. It's it's much less expensive. It wears well, for many of the roads. It's not best for everything, but there are several different alternatives to the, excavation and rebuilding the entire road. You have the micros, I'm not having the proper term, but it's like a micro seal coating that they use. And then there's another process they used up on France Street neighborhood this past summer. We ran into some issues, but that process is less expensive also. So we're looking at different ways to cut the cost in the future. And I'm not sure, but, we had two $10 million bond referendums
yeah.
for paving. And I'm not sure what condition the roads were in 20 years ago. And maybe now they're in much better condition, so maybe we spend less. We don't need to spend as much in order to rebuild all the roads like we have been for the past 20 years.
Right. And that's the same explanation, right?
Okay, so we're not foreseeing another referendum along those lines?
Oh,
then,
I hope
for the
not.
foreseeable future?
We're trying to self-fund and not borrow, in the future.
Okay, good, thank you.
Just real quick I see happily that legal expenses are below maybe what they would be, is that a timing thing, or do we think we're actually gonna come in under budget?
Yeah, what we're having on legal, I don't know if I tried to make a note in there, but we had a position that was budgeted for on the human resources side, and we've had an agreement with our legal firm that we could have our person available like 1 day a week, instead of having the full-time position, and this is actually ends up being about half the cost of actually bringing in the full-time
That's
person
just for
with
data, right?
benefits.
Yeah, for labor.
Correct,
Is that working out well?
yeah, yeah,
So is that something we'll probably continue to do and maybe be able to,
correct, you'll probably see that.
so we may save some
Change.
money and be able to budget it down a little bit next year?
That's where
That's the goal.
we're working on that.
Great.
Any other questions on the monthly financial? Nope. Do we have anything for other?
No, I don't.
Okay.
Entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.